Cue the cheesy podcast music.
Welcome to MegaFest, where we don't just manifest, we MegaFest. I'm your host, Megs Malloy. I'm creating a community of silly and soulful working moms who are mostly happy, but know they're capable of more. More self-love, more self-esteem, more self-trust, more calm, joy, natural highs, more magic in the world, and more laughter. Each week, me and my guests will bring you tips and tricks on how to make the most of your one precious life. And we're going to make them effective and efficient because ain't nobody got time for that. I believe in you. I see the light in you. I want you to shine your light. I want you to become all that you're capable of. So let's hang out. Let's MegaFest together. Welcome back. I am so freaking honored to be here with you. Thanks for pressing play. I know there's a gajillion things you could be doing with your day, and I'm so honored to be here with you. So let's get into it because today's episode with Maureen Spielman is so good. There's so many gems in here. She has such a great, diverse training as far as life coaching goes. And let me tell you a little bit about her background. So Maureen Spielman is a conscious life coach. I think conscious in the life coach just means basically you choose how you want to live. You don't let repeating patterns of your past or things you've learned determine how your life is going to go. She supports individuals in deepening their relationship to self and their loved ones. After facing a life-altering diagnosis in 2018, which she talks about today on our episode, Maureen was invited to forge a new professional path, one that allowed her to assist women and families directly. Maureen guides her clients to gain new perspectives into their upbringing, triggers, and patterns in order to change ways of being that no longer serve them. She supports them in transforming limiting beliefs and getting curious about cultural conditioning. And in addition, through her own healing journey, Maureen realizes that releasing suppressed emotions and following your intuition are essential pieces to living a fully expressed life. And that's something that I love that she talks about, fully expressed life. It's kind of like realizing popularity, right? Do you think so? I think so. Maureen recently launched the Mystical Sisterhood podcast. That sounds like a band. You should make a band too, Maureen. The podcast is focused on joy, healing, and building community. That sounds like a great couple of topics, don't you think? That's what we're all about here at MegaFest too. I think that's why I clicked with Maureen's so quickly. She also runs the Mystical Sisterhood membership program. Maureen has completed certification and coaching programs through Duke Integrative Medicine, Radical Remission, Dr. Shafali's Conscious Parenting Coaching Institute, and Susie Lula's Soul Care Coaching. Do you know I did that? It took me about 5 takes to say that. So thank you, Susie Lula, and your soul care coaching. That wasn't so hard. Maureen works with individuals one-on-one, in groups, and through speaking engagements. So I think we can agree that she has studied her soul off. I was going to say studied her ass off, but she studied her soul off, and she is well-versed in all these things: conscious parenting, intuition, soul care, remission, all these things. So this is going to be worth your time and worth a listen. The word of the day is ameliorate. Oh, we had so much fun using this word. Ameliorate means to make something bad or unsatisfactory better. This episode definitely will ameliorate not only your day, but listen out for Maureen's how to listen to your intuition technique. I think you're really going to like it. It's a super good one. All right, let's get to it. Please help me welcome, and you can clap. It's all good. It always feels good to clap Please help me welcome Maureen Spielman. Hey, Maureen Spielman. Welcome to MegaFest.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Oh, Maureen, you are just glowing today. I feel the love coming out of you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just super excited to be here and honored to be sitting in this chair across from you.
Thank you. Well, I know that our person listening today is in for a treat because you have the gift and the knowledge. You have studied and you know how to ameliorate somebody's life.
Yes, I do.
Oh my gosh, sing it so loud and so long. But at this party, we always start with, what will you have to drink?
I'm currently drinking water. So that is what I'd bring. And I have to tell you, I'm a big coffee and water gal these days. And I don't know what it is, but not a lot of alcohol for me anymore. So I think I'm going to be coffee and I'm going to be water.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And do you have a special kind of coffee that you drink?
I can't say. I'm usually a black coffee with a little half and half in it. And people always say like, oh, dairy causes inflammation, but I just can't get away from it. And it reminds me of my mom. I think my mom used to dump in like half a thing, a half and half to her cup of coffee. And it's just like that little bit of goodness that I don't really like to take out of my life.
Yes. And so you should not.
That's right.
Yes, you got to pick and choose where you're going to joy versus like health or whatever, right? It's like,
absolutely.
Let me not take all the joy out.
Yes.
And it's nostalgic. That's wonderful. And so, Maureen, tell us, what are you famous for?
Well, it's a great question. I thought of two things when you kind of said that was going to be a question today. And I think the one thing I hear over and over is a really good listener. People will say, I tell you things that I've never told anyone else, or you're such a good listener. So I think that's a big one. And I think my other one is my passion for conscious parenting. And it's been part of my coaching and I love it. So I'd say those two things, if I could straddle both of those. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what is conscious parenting?
Conscious parenting is, as it relates to me, it's a program that I did a few years back. I have 3 children myself, and they're upper teens now, 17, 19, 22. And I think that conscious parenting was something I kind of came into right after I had kids. I didn't call it that. I didn't know that. But I had a deep desire to kind of go about parenting differently than the way I had been raised. I kind of was on my own because 20 plus years ago, there wasn't books written about it. Anyway, along my coaching journey, I've done a lot of different programs, and one called Conscious Parenting by Dr. Shefali Sabari was one of them. And Dr. Shefali became world famous. I believe it was around 2013 when she had been a wisdom teacher for years, but she ended up on Oprah. And kind of Oprah touched, and she turned to gold. I did the program years later than that, but conscious parenting is really, it's 2 words used to describe a new way of parenting, a new way that's being called for in the world. And how I look at it, it is the parent first and foremost before anything, taking a look within themselves to see what am I bringing to my parenting. And that's usually informed by our own childhoods, the way we were parented, and kind of taking a look at, is it even working for me? Is that what I want to be doing? Or do I want to forge ahead and make my own, almost like values and vision and mission, or a family mission statement? And after we take a look at ourselves, it's how are we connecting with our child and what are they calling for? And are we seeing them for their unique being, unique self, and just completely honoring that. So it's really looking at a lot of culturally, I guess, family of origin and culturally and institution-wise, what have we been influenced by and what's ours and what's not. It's a big concept, but I think it's such a beautiful one. And it's one that's really needed out there in the world right now.
Oh, I agree completely.
Mm-hmm.
Maureen, I have curated my Instagram feed to kind of be a teacher for me. And a lot of the people I follow are conscious parenting. And it is so helpful. And I love it because, we do get caught up in our own stuff and the ways that we were taught. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No. And I think there's that part of it when it comes to the parents, that just a kinder and gentler way that we meet ourselves. And even if we end up, yelling at our kid or just doing something that we might not feel good about, it's all without judgment, and it's backing up and say, like, is there a better way? And I think you're right. I think there's a lot of conscious parenting, and I think it's called peaceful parenting. And I know my kids aren't younger, but a lot of people love Dr. Becky. And just like I think she does the good inside. Oh, I have one. She'll come to mind. Her name's Avital. She's excellent too. There's a lot of the messages out there. You know how it is. It's like things are multiplying and they're becoming exponential, and it's all needed. I always love how any coaching teacher I've had will say there's 7, and I recently heard 8 billion, but 7 billion people on the planet. So the more of us who can be doing this light work, like yourself, it's needed.
Yes, absolutely. Because it is going to change for the future generations.
Yeah.
And the more that we can be healed, everyone around us will be healed too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would even say, Maureen, that the work that you are doing, like your foundation as a conscious parent coach, can also apply to any individual, especially women, where we need to learn to parent our inner child all over again, and apply these techniques of making space for our emotions and kind of, looking back and seeing, what have we learned and what do we need to relearn, and kind of all these things. So do you find that in your work?
Absolutely. I think that, in fact, I had done Dr. Shefali's program, and then I've done a lot of just work around what's called soul care with another teacher, Susie Lula. Shortly after I finished the conscious parenting, I thought to myself, it's really just conscious life coaching. It's exactly what you're saying. If I want to teach my kid, like, let's just say you're talking about emotions, the way I learned it with my other teacher is that there's the emotional messenger system, and that emotions are not, there's no good or bad. They're all good. They're all here for us. They're all here with messages for us. The more we become aware of that. So we might be teaching our child, but at the same time, you've got anger rising in you, or overwhelm, or frustration. And it's the stopping and saying, oh, this is actually an energetic system within me that has intelligence. It's not just my brain that's intelligent, or, my physical body that needs to be worked, but this whole idea of emotions being a gold mine for us. The more I can understand that an emotion is here to get my attention, and maybe it's been trying to get my attention for 10 years, but it's there for me. And then when I started to learn, like, why is resentment here? Again, like, even the emotions that we're taught, like, they're bad, push them away. That's not been good for me. I know that that's not beneficial. I know it doesn't feel good. And so the more I can apply, what is this emotion here to tell me, and get curious about it. Oh, why is it showing up in this situation? What is it here to tell me? It will lead me to, well, what is your unmet need underneath the emotion? And so it's the same thing I want to teach a child. Oh, when you feel sad right now, what's the unmet need? Are you needing an adult to come sit by your side? Do you feel like you're not being heard by your teacher? And so that's very sophisticated language. But if you think about it, if we would have learned that when we were young, maybe we wouldn't have to reparent our inner child so much. I mean, we would have had to, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Because I think, that was definitely the way when we were kids, is just, shove it, stuff it, be quiet, get over it.
I always think too, you have younger children, is that right?
7 and 4.
Okay. So on the younger side, I always think, because when I learned the conscious parenting and everything that went through it, I look at my friends who have young children, and it is such a gift. And then in real time, it's a lot too, because when children come with their big emotions, it requires a lot of us. And I remember I didn't know any tools at that time. I don't know how that, resonates with you, or if that's like, it's big work to go meet the needs. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think my husband and I, when my daughter was born, we saw a TED Talk, and it was by two parents, and they were talking about how, there's like a dip in your happiness when you first have children, because it is a learning curve, and it's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
They're crying, you're like, oh my God, even just the crying when they can't even talk is so much. But and then they learn how to talk back to you and say that they hate you, and like all those things with the triggers. It's so crazy. Yeah. And just even within a span of like 5 minutes, you could have such extreme emotions where, they're devastated and everything's wrong in the world. And then, oh, okay, we're over it. It's okay. We're on to the next thing. And I'm like, I'm still over here.
Right.
Still thinking
Right. Yes. And if they could stay on that healthy side of it, where it's that healthy expression where it makes us uncomfortable until we learn, like, this is okay. It's actually okay that they're shouting in the middle of the grocery store. But children, you can see, they process things more naturally. And then as they go about in the world, like you're saying, like that inner child concept of, you start responding to your environments, to the environments that want you to stay quiet, to, the scolding you get, whatever it is in whatever environment, and you change and adapt to sort of please that environment around you. So I think for all of us, like when you just mentioned women, for all of us as adults, it's coming back to rediscover our authentic self, which was there all along, but just got buried by us having to adapt to our environment.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. It's like touching on everything that I believe to be true. I totally, and I have to go back to something that you said too, because emotions are a gold mine. Like that's what I'm going to call this episode, because that is, our emotions are a gold mine. That is so true. So if we can consciously parent our children, consciously coach ourselves or parent ourselves, and then we would, this is sort of skipping to the end goal, but we would be living what you call a fully expressed life.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
I think it looks like a lot of things. I think that being with yourself and your emotions is part of it. But I always think of it as like this container, I guess, where there's just, if each of us is here with our own soul's journey and our own soul's curriculum, what you're here to learn might be a corollary to what I'm here to learn, but we each have like those special ingredients that are going to make up our fullest expression, let's say. I think that, feeling our emotions, like you're saying, tending to those tender parts in us that didn't receive what they wanted, what they desired when we were younger, is like tending to those parts too. And that's all kind of all the same, right? Like that younger versions of ourselves, the emotions that you may not have learned to express clearly, with clarity, fully. What comes to mind is when you say that, like fully expressed, is in communication. How do we feel fully expressed within communication? How do we feel fully expressed when it comes to our purpose and the work that we're here and we're meant to do? And that might be a hobby for someone or a full-time gig for somebody else. But so there's a lot of things I feel that go into that fullest expression that's really unique to the person in front of you.
Yeah. So it's living up to your potential, and it's feeling at home within yourself too.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. I think the more that we can sink into when we're asked the questions about what your gifts and strengths, and even I love your question that you start with, what are you known for? Because I think a lot in my life, if someone would have said to me, you're a great listener, you make people feel at ease, I used to think that those were kind of like softer skills. I remember my first career was a speech pathologist. They would say that, like, oh, those are soft skills. And I think, like, what do they mean by that? And a lot of times it was like almost like what I think of as social emotional skills, but they weren't, they weren't the fine motor, or they weren't the gross motor, or they weren't the language, or they weren't the cognitive, but they were these other that I think my dad would have called street smarts or something. But knowing that those whispers of what people tell you you're good at, they're really important. And I think that I always downplayed mine because they fell into the emotional realm. and they fell into this realm that is not as measured by society. The funniest side to that is when I was a speech pathologist, it was 1995 or something like that, and the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman came out. And I remember being like, oh, that's so cool. And I got the book. There was no Amazon back then, right? And I don't even think, I still have my shelf. It might even be behind me somewhere, but I don't even know if I read it from cover to cover, but I just liked the concept. But it took me years and years and years. It was like my intuition knew that emotional intelligence was real, but I had been so cultured to think that like maybe like IQ or what you got on your SAT or whatever was actually the real smart. I was so encultured with that it took me many years to really know that all intelligences are intelligences. They come in so many different forms, and they're specific to like everybody's got their own. And I mean, we've got all these global ways of kind of labeling people's intelligences, but you can't even, I don't think. So
right. Yes, I agree. I will tell you, during the pandemic, my husband had me take this Clifton Strengths Finder. Have you heard of that one?
I've never heard of it. No.
I think there's like 36 words or markers of like, what are your strengths? And when I got mine back, I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
I am this person. And I love that. And like, I didn't know that was a strength, right? Because
that's
in
amazing.
Particular, yeah, it was so empowering. Mm-hmm. And, it gives us permission to awareness, right? Yes. Awareness of what our strengths are, and then permission to like that about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And one of my strengths was winning others over. Mm-hmm. And I always thought, like, how could that be a strength, right? It's just like, whatever. Or one of them was empathy. Yeah. Like, how is that a strength? Like when you were saying, maybe it's a soft skill, or like it makes you a soft person. Yeah. But it actually can be something that the world needs.
The world needs. And then the spectacular thing about now is that you could actually channel it into your career.
Yeah.
So
you
that's
can
fascinating. Mm-hmm.
ameliorate your own life and the life of others.
Yes, you can ameliorate your own life and the life of others. Thank you.
Yes. That awareness of your own strengths, your own wonderful things about you, what brings you joy, it kind of lends itself to also this self-trust, which I didn't know about until like last year. I didn't know that self-trust was a thing, and then I was lacking it, and then I needed to work on that. But part of self-trust is listening to your intuition. How would you recommend for the person listening today to get in tune with their intuition?
Such a great question. And another one that I just want to say is not when we always learn about the five senses when we're growing up. And so that sixth sense, that intuition is not talked about. I really started
that's a great point. Like, why not? Yeah. That's like, it totally should be.
It should be. So we're going to start including that, and it will ameliorate our lives because we've got this sixth sense.
Oh,
yes.
That was a good one.
Very good. Sometimes it is, things that happen in our lives that wake us up and allow us to lean into other parts of our being that we hadn't before. And it was in 2018 when I was surprised by a diagnosis of breast cancer. I had to go through the process of a lot of hard decisions. I was recommended shortly after I started getting all the diagnostic work done to have mastectomy surgery. And so, of course, it was just a really big moment. It was the beginning of the summertime, and I had time to think because the surgeons were on vacation, and the doctor had said to me, if you want to do a single side, you can do a single side, but if you want to do a double-sided mastectomy, you can do that too. I would sit on my back porch, and I live in Chicago, and the weather was getting warmer, so I would sit outside and I'd be thinking, and I started to get this intuition to do both sides. And I thought to myself, that's weird, Maureen. You consider yourself more of a holistic person. Like, why would you ever do that? I really leaned into anything that you ever knew before this time. You just have to set to the side because it was kind of this crisis time in my life. I really leaned into my intuition and I started to pay attention, and I was getting the voices from inside that I was like, how could that be real? But I decided to follow it, went through with the surgery and chose what I consider to be that bigger surgery. And then for me, a week after I went for my pathology report, they said, oh, it was on the other side too. And so that was kind of like such a huge light bulb moment that I would have never known that. And maybe that would have never manifested into anything, for me. But I was blown away because I knew I was leaning into the intuition. So that's sort of like a big, bold story about that. But it really allowed me to begin to trust more and more. Now over the years, and what I've learned is that we're always getting signs and we're always getting information. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I really feel like we are all fully supported and receiving information from, our angels and spirit guides, but also from within. One of the things that I do to listen to that voice within is to sit in a quiet space. And I started doing this not too long ago, but it's more like a journaling process where I will do things like, I like early morning when you're waking up fresh, but lighting candles and kind of setting the stage. I will sit, connect to my breath, and I'll pose a question like, what do I need to know today? Or what's like the next thing I need to know for my work? And I'll just get quiet and trust, because trust is a big part of it, that this is real. But I'll just start to get ideas and I'll start to write them down. And I don't do it daily, but I'll do it like a few times a week. Or, you could just sit and stop and do it in the middle of the day if you were looking for information. I know I didn't say this, but if we're going on the premise that I do this for my clients, that the client in front of me is there's nothing to be fixed and they have all the answers within. If I truly believe that, then I believe it for myself too. And I think it takes getting quiet and still to listen to the voices.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, that is an awesome answer. And
Yeah.
I agree with you that the intuition is such a whisper that we need to kind of pay attention and sort of, get quiet and make space for it.
I think too, this is an aside, but I love reading about intuition or signs. A few years ago, I think I picked up the book. I don't know if you ever read it, Signs. And It's all about a woman who is a medium and all these stories that came to her about how signs are shown to people all the time in all these different forms, but we just pass by them. But the more in tune we get with ourselves and just the world around us, the more we notice and the more we see and we can use all that information in our decision-making process. So,
yeah. Oh, I totally agree with you. I know it sounds a little woo-woo, right? But I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah. I jokingly asked the universe for a sign, and it was like, just my daily kind of like ongoing good luck sign is a pink car. We live in LA, so there's a lot of cars around. And Maureen, seriously, I've seen more pink cars than anyone has a right to be seeing. It's crazy. But I think I need to be asking for maybe bigger things.
Yeah. It's amazing though that can ameliorate your day by setting the tone.
Yes.
Asking for the sign or asking to the intuitive question. The question could even be around, what do I know about this? What do I know about this situation, right? When we ask the question, and I'm sure this is the same with the pink cars, but know that you might not get that intuitive answer in the moment, but it might come to you throughout the day, throughout the week. With our awareness, then start connecting the dots.
Part of your practice is releasing suppressed emotions. Mm-hmm. And what sort of modalities do you like for releasing suppressed emotions?
Well, I think that our earlier conversation is a great segue into that, to knowing, right, that we have this body of emotions. And the thing that I think I never understood either was our memories are stored within our cellular body from our lifetime. And I don't study a lot of generational or intergenerational, but we're also holding from other generations, from those who came before us too. What I'm tapping into a lot these days is breath work to unlock. And I don't know if you've taken part in breath work, but it's so incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I just, just what I've done on my own, and some of the previous guests have been breathwork facilitators.
Oh, that's awesome. There's a book called The Presence Process. It is based on the premise that meditating for 15 minutes in the morning and the evening. And so it's a great book to pick up if any listener wants to. And it's meant to be practiced over a number of weeks. That meditation, and I think that this can be done even without this, but you have a mantra that goes with it, and then connected breathing. So you're working on the breath work, and it's simple. It's really simple. But the idea is, and I think it's so powerful, is throughout the weeks of doing this, you start to express emotion. And things that are housed in our body are unearthed. And so I think that that's one way of it's a powerful way of releasing suppressed emotions. So I'll name that as just kind of a takeaway. I've been able to meet a woman recently that does more. I don't even know I know the man she was trained by, but it's a way more intense breath work. And I've walked out of those kind of sessions sobbing. I didn't walk out sobbing. I was sobbing during.
Yeah.
But I think it's that breath, and I'm not I haven't studied and practiced that. Like, that's a modality just through the breath work that I think really gets at the deeper emotions. I think, but on the levels that we know that are so accessible, it's like the dancing, the listening to music, whatever it is to kind of stimulate. And I think a lot is that awareness of, do I even have emotions to release? And that was one of the things that I studied, because I'm always like seeking, because when I first went into coaching, I thought that I wanted to do health and wellness coaching. And then I had this diagnosis, and I studied what's called radical remission. And radical remission was written by this woman, Kelly Turner. Radical remission was she went and studied 1,500 people from around the world. They were people who were statistically unlikely to heal from a cancer diagnosis. So she found, I won't go into all of them, but she found a set of ways that they healed. And these people, some had done Western medicine alone, some had done totally alternative complementary, and some had done like a combination. When we think about the things that happen to us and how they inform our lives, the two in the book, and that's why I put them in my bio with you, were intuition and releasing suppressed emotions, which were the work that I needed to do. That's what I needed to do for myself. Those two qualities or ways of being, or it greatly informs the coaching work I do, because I love everything around infinite possibilities, manifestation, abundance, everything. And I know my work on this planet is around healing emotions too. And I'm just attracted to it. And that's why I have the releasing suppressed emotions in there. It was directly that when I first heard of that, it was directly from radical remission.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Yeah. I think, actually, Maureen, it's interesting that you bring this up, because the last two people who have been at MegaFest, I remember Matthew Anderson, he said this phrase of like, your issues are in your tissues. And
that's a good one.
And and then Katie Grimes was saying that, she had incredible, she was in a wheelchair. She was having, such physical ailments, but it was really kind of emotional in some ways. And not to say that her physical ailments were not there, they were real, but she was saying that, there was an element of dis-ease there.
Yes.
And that's really amazing that you're able to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And others.
Mm-hmm. I think it's always gonna, when I think about my future and the future of my health, I never know, but I have to imagine all this work is beneficial, and it'll serve me well. Yeah. It
definitely will. Yeah. It'll definitely ameliorate your health.
Absolutely.
Wow, this episode is awesome. I'm just going to call a quick TO to tell you about Nutrition with Megs. It's a body positive nutrition mentoring so that you can optimize your physique, whatever that means for you. So if you started this year thinking, I've got a couple pounds I need to lose, and you haven't done it so far, and you're not sure how you're gonna do it, this help I'm offering is for you. I know we're all curious beings, so take a look at the link in the bio, and that should give you more information. Losing fat is a science, but habit formation, that is a whole nother story. So I'm here to hold your hand, pat your back, cheer for you, and lead the way. All right, I better get back to that episode. I'll see you in the show notes. Maureen, we are coming to our time together, and parting is such sweet sorrow, but I have to ask you if there's anything else that we didn't mention and that you want to leave with our listener today.
Thank you. We've covered a lot, I think, of just, where I've been and the work that I'm carrying forward. I guess I would say as well that a lot of the work, I've mentioned like pieces of it, but just the importance and the beauty of soul care. And I don't know how you can kind of fit this in, but it's a lot. It is more of the work that I'm doing now. And of course, the consciousness and all that is just such a beautiful thing. Soul care too is just really, really honing into our soul and what it's meant to express here in our time, whether it's through our purpose or what we came to heal. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful body of work. And so that's like really informed just the work I do now. And I think bringing forward too, just to mention this idea of follow the thread that may be seeming like it's being put out in front of you. And like everything is a synchronicity. And that's why when I look back and just sitting with you today and talking about these various things, it's like I decided at one point, like the health coaching and radical remission, it wasn't for me but something in me, I think, was kind of drawing me forward, and it's like something else, Maureen, like you're getting close and it's okay. That wasn't all for naught, but just that willingness to kind of shift and change and be willing to put aside sometimes things that we thought were ours or the things that even we worked hard for. Like I had a master's degree in speech pathology and I finally just let it go, where this time around with the re-signing and the repaying and to do the continuing eds, because I finally knew that wasn't for me anymore. And it took a while. So I think like the patience with ourselves, like just to allow ourselves patience and grace to where we're going. But when I really started to, I think, step into the work that I was meant to do, that started with the conscious parenting and went into the soul care, was that years ago had what I thought was an intuitive hit around this name, Mystical Sis. It first came through as Mystical Sisters. And it was probably 5 years ago. And I was like, oh, that's something, but I didn't know what, but I knew it was meaningful. And then last year, it came to me. It started to come again. So when things start to come to you, it's so important to pay attention. It started to come to me again. And I said, I'm going to get the domain name for this. And I went to look and that name was taken. So I said okay, I'll change it a little bit. And I chose Mystical Sisterhood. And I still didn't know what it was going to be. And then I think in the summer, I just started thinking okay, it's meant to segue into a podcast. That's been a real joy for me in the last, the fall and then into this year, to be able to develop that. And I don't know if you feel the same way about your podcast, but I feel like it was just something that I didn't even intentionally think oh, I'm going to choose that of all this menu of things to do. It just called to me. And then, so, and then I just I feel like it's almost like a magnet pulling me forward. But what that tells me is I'm in the right place. And
right.
When we aren't, we kind of know it, but then when we get there, things really start to unfold and open up, and you meet the people you're supposed to and things. And not everything is easy. I mean, being an entrepreneur is being an entrepreneur. There's, again, tons of menus of choices and things we can do. And, so we have to pick and choose, but I'm really grateful to have paid attention and to be developing what seems to be my heart's desire now.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I call realizing popularity, because you're not doing what everybody else thinks you should do, or, going after other people's likes of you, which is popularity, but it's just fully realizing your potential, your purpose, loving yourself, and taking care of your soul too.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. Well, okay, but can we just talk a little bit more about soul care? Because that sounds like should be a whole another, I mean, like we have Kaiser for our healthcare and we should have Maureen for our soul care. So tell me about soul care. Like
Soul care,
dive a little bit deeper in there.
It's a good question. It probably is going to say, you're going to be like, oh, you touched upon it earlier, but soul care is a certification that I've done. And I think there's more than one. Someone asked me recently, like, did you do it by this person? And I said, no. But Susie Lula is a teacher of mine who started doing this certification. She's a wisdom teacher, a spiritual therapist. I'd have to say the components it's rooted in what's called spiritual psychology. So spiritual psychology takes into account, I was just re-listening to some of her teaching, and she was saying the original definition of psychology is soul. It's called ruha, and it's the soul. More traditional psychology, it lost that along the way. So this idea, I'm a coach, I learned under a spiritual therapist, but this idea that our soul is often overlooked too. Again, our kids are not in school unless they're at a really alternative school learning about the soul. And so I think that's why I think it's a perfect dovetail almost to like a conscious parenting work, which is, again, consciousness about we're all unique. We should all be considered so for what we're here to bring and share and heal. And so I think under the soul care umbrella, it is around the same things. It's the greeting and healing emotions. It's coming to the spaces inside of us that maybe we have a lot of judgment or shame or the voices of harshness, and really loosening those knots of the things that have gotten like harder or more, rigid and less, I don't know, almost like less available. And then it's the application of compassion and self-compassion to soften those places and go to our inner child and recognize what parts of things we're operating from our survival self. The overview is compassion, and it's in compassion being really high vibration and applying it to so many places within that are calling out for that healing. So it's a big concept in a paragraph or two. That's what it's going for. It's just beautiful in action. And it also includes a lot of experiential processes. So when I'm in coaching we're closing our eyes and we're doing closed eye processes, which is another way for expression of emotions and tapping into places that even our cognitive mind can't necessarily reach. But when we go deeper, settle into our body, we can access things that are always there for us and help express them. So it's incredibly healing.
So closed eye is like meditation or?
Yeah, or in a coaching session, it would be having someone, if they were coming in, let's say, if it's judgment or resentment, let's take a look like deeper. What could that mean for you? Having them close their eyes, center into their heart, and guiding them on a process of meeting a younger version of themselves, or like different places in their life where that may have first shown up, whether it was with a boyfriend or a parent and just to begin. And I think sometimes I've been in a coaching session like that. I think it's so cool because when you really settle into your body in that quiet space, you're able to access things that if I said to you, what's something from when you were 15 years old, you'd be like, well, I remember like a trip I went on and this, but then suddenly in this deeper process, you can get a hold of something that's super meaningful and kind of informed how you feel today.
It reminds me of what you said about when you were thinking about doing the double mastectomy, where you were judging your intuition, maybe from a story that you had learned earlier in your life or somebody else's standard of what you should be like. And just
I think
being aware.
I think a big one with the soul care that's interesting to me is around the emotional work. I just had someone say to me, like when they went into a process, like, I can't connect to that part of myself. Is there something wrong with me? And I don't think it's the way that we've, maybe there is a disconnection within, but with practice and with going back, you'll be surprised because it may be, 3 or 4 times. And then, in terms of applying self-compassion, compassion sounds like this abstract word, and it absolutely can ameliorate your life the more you apply it. So, but it seems abstract. It seems like, what is she talking about? And then 6 months in, someone will kind of get it and be like, oh, but it's because we didn't learn to greet ourselves with compassion and that self-love that everybody talks about. So
yeah, it takes time.
It takes time, and there's so much transformation that can occur. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I think everybody needs more Maureen Spielman in their life. And so definitely go check out mysticalsisterhood.com. Is that right? Yeah. You
right.
got the URL. Good job.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, that's a weekly podcast, and it's really based on, so simply, joy, healing, and community. And I always, when I went through my journey, it was just like, I knew that, and that's why I can vibe with you so much, because just the joy piece, right? And for me, I know that the healing piece is the emotional side of it, that I'm like, okay, I want to put these two together because they can coexist. And healing doesn't have to be like all, it can all coexist together. And I think that the joyful, to experience joy, that's the fully expressed life.
I love it. I love it. Let us all be more joyful and healed and just, welcoming of each other and accepting and compassionate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Oh, Maureen, you're so good. Now, I've got one last question. It'll raise us all up and be joyful. So what is the song that is going to get you on the dance floor? Like if you're at a wedding or the club.
Okay, it's a great
or
song.
You need a little pump-up song?
Here's what people don't know about me is that, and not everybody's down with this, but I live for and love EDM, electronic dance music. I don't like all oldies, but you're going to find me listening to, like, on Sirius XM Diplo. Like, some people don't even think this is music because it's like the techno music. But probably from my college days, the earlier version of that was Pump Up the Jam. That's the one that's going to get me on the dance floor.
So good. Well, we have EDM going all the time because my husband's a big fan. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like in my car, it's always kids podcasts or my son's playlist. But yeah, the Sirius. So you said Diplo?
Yes.
Is that the artist?
Yes.
Is that the name of
I think it's the channel. That's on Sirius.
Okay.
But I would love your husband's music if you were to say he's the one playing it.
Yeah. He doesn't, the kids have no choice of music in his car.
Right. That's awesome. It's a good question.
Oh. Well, this has just been so wonderful, Maureen, and really parting is such sweet sorrow, and I just have so enjoyed our time together. The amount of amelioration on my life right now is just so massive, and you're just doing such great work, and it really is going to make a difference throughout the generations. It's prolific, right? It's exponential.
Yeah. And that's why I love the medium of a podcast, because that's one thing that you may have tapped in for a while now. I don't know how long you've had yours, but it's exponential. And so the goodness can just get out there to more listeners who's ever meant to turn it on that day. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Maureen, so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Isn't Maureen so good? Imagine all that she's been through, and she still continues to want to help people and heal herself as well. I really loved when she talked about emotions are a gold mine, because we don't have to be scared of our emotions. They're really just feedback. If we can get in tune with how we're feeling, then we can assess the situation and really find out what's not working, what is working, and really improve our lives. Or, as Maureen puts it, have a fully expressed life. And that sort of reminds me of Brene Brown's Wholehearted Living, or Megs Malloy's Realizing Popularity, where we don't need to be held back. We can experience more joy. We can listen to our soul's calling. We can have a great experience in this one short, precious life. And one way to have a fully expressed life is to take care of your soul. It's kind of like self-care, but it's called soul care. I love it. It's so great. Maureen's technique for getting in touch with your intuition, where you just get quiet, you ask yourself a question, and just really kind of trust that the answers that are coming in a whisper are your intuition, and they are your spirit guides. They are your spiritual downloads guiding the way. So try that out. I want to know if you liked it, if it worked for you, if you would add anything to it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today. And thank you so much to Maureen for being on the show. Please go listen to her podcast, Mystical Sisterhood. I know it is full of so much goodness and joy. And you can always find Maureen on her website, Maureen Spielman, SPIELMAN.com. And I'll put her website and her email address even in the show notes. This was a great episode, but do you know there are so many great episodes coming up? I'm so excited for you. I recently went to a networking event and met a ton of soulful coaches and a drummer who heals people through drumming and somebody who helps people with their subconscious fears. Oh my gosh, so many good things coming up. So make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss anything at all. Because MegaFest is the party, no matter what you're drinking and what you're famous for. We all want to have a fully expressed life. We want to realize our popularity. We want to open up our receiving holes. And we want to have soulgasms. And that's what MegaFesting is all about. So thank you for being here today. Stay tuned for all the great things that are coming right around the corner. And remember, don't just manifest, MegaFest!